hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Walter Hale stared at the computer screen, the glow reflecting off his steady features. His mouse hovered over the transfer button. 10 years of disciplined saving had accumulated to this precise moment $250,000. Not a fortune by some standards, but to him, it represented something greater than money. It was proof that he clicked. The system processed for 3 seconds that stretched like minutes. Transfer complete. Walter leaned back in his chair and allowed himself a rare, slight smile. He didn't pump his fist or shout. That wasn't his way. Instead, he took a screenshot, saved it to his private folder, and closed the laptop in the kitchen. He poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. The amber liquid caught the morning light streaming through the window. Walter never drank before noon, except today. Some moments deserve acknowledgement. His phone buzzed. "Arlo, did you do it?" Arlo asked without preamble when Walter answered. "Just now," Walter replied, taking a measured sip. 250,000. Exactly as planned. "Congratulations, man. That's something." There was genuine pride in Arlo's voice. "So now what? You finally gonna pull the trigger on that land in Black Mountain?" Walter walked to the window overlooking Asheville's mountain-framed skyline. "Yes, it's time. I found a few parcels that might work. Gonna look this weekend." "And Bree? She excited too?" Walter's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes cooled. "She doesn't know yet. I'm telling her tonight." A pause on the line. "Right. Well, good luck with that. I've got your back either way." After hanging up, Walter opened the desk drawer and pulled out a folder with printed listings of land parcels. Each one carefully researched, soil-tested, surveyed. The top property, 5 acres backing up to protected forest, had potential. Enough room for the house he'd sketched countless times over the years. 2 stories, timber frame, large windows facing the mountains. A workshop separate from the main house, where he could continue his father's tradition of woodworking. Walter heard the front door open and quickly slid the folder back into the drawer. "Walter? You home?" Bree's voice carried through the house, followed by the sound of shopping bags hitting the counter. He found her in the kitchen, unpacking what appeared to be another unnecessary shopping excursion. Her dark hair was freshly styled, her outfit perfectly coordinated. "Hey," he said, noting the store logos on the bags. High-end brands they'd agreed were outside their budget. Again, Bree looked up with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "There you are. Look what I found on sale." She held up a crystal vase. "Isn't it gorgeous? 60% off. How much was it originally?" Walter asked. Her smile faltered slightly. "Does it matter?" It was a steal. Walter didn't press. It wasn't about the money, it was about the pattern. The constant push for more, better, expensive. The disregard for what they'd agreed upon. "I have some good news," he said instead. "Oh." She placed the vase on the counter, already distracted by her next purchase. "I hit my savings goal today. The house fund is complete." Bree stilled, then turned to him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "The house fund? Oh, right. That boring dream of yours." The words stung more than Walter would admit. "Boring dream." She laughed lightly, waving a dismissive hand. "You know what I mean. Building a house from scratch in the middle of nowhere when we could buy something amazing right here in the city. Something with style. Something that doesn't require years of construction and compromise." "It's not about style," Walter said quietly. "It's about building something that lasts. Something that's ours." "No, it's yours," she corrected, unpacking another bag. "Your dream. Your obsession with proving you're not your father." Walter felt his jaw tighten. "My father built things with his hands. There's honor in that." Bree sighed dramatically. "There's also poverty in that, which is why you're so obsessed with saving every penny." "We're not poor anymore, Walter. We could actually enjoy life instead of hoarding money for some hypothetical future." She walked over and placed a hand on his chest, her tone softening. "Wouldn't you rather live now? Travel? Experience things? We're young, successful. Why wait?" Walter looked down at her, seeing the calculation behind her smile. "Because some things are worth waiting for." She rolled her eyes and moved back to her purchases. "Well, I gotta get ready. I'm meeting Des for drinks before the charity thing tonight." "I thought that was tomorrow." "No, it's definitely tonight." You wouldn't be interested anyway. Just a bunch of boring networking. She headed toward their bedroom, then paused. Oh, and Drayden Knox confirmed he's coming to our dinner party on Saturday. He's bringing that new wine he imported from Italy, the one I told you about. Walter nodded, though he had no recollection of any such conversation. Drayden Knox, the flashy entrepreneur who had suddenly appeared in their social circle 3 months ago, always talking about his tech startup and his connections. Don't forget to pick up your suit from the dry cleaner, Bree called over her shoulder. The navy one, not that old black one. We need to look the part. After she disappeared upstairs, Walter returned to his office and reopened the land listings. The sound of Bree's shower running upstairs provided a steady background noise as he methodically reviewed each property. He opened his phone and texted Arlo. Still on for lunch tomorrow? The reply came quickly. Wouldn't miss it. Usual spot? Yes. Have some things to discuss. Walter stared at the message for a moment, then added, important things. The following day, Walter sat across from Arlo at their usual corner table at the Timber Press, a quiet cafe tucked away from the tourist areas of downtown Asheville. Arlo was midway through a story about his latest difficult client when he paused, studying Walter's face. You're not listening to a word I'm saying, are you? Walter blinked. Sorry, been distracted. I noticed. What's going on? You look like you're calculating risks in your head. Arlo pushed his plate aside. Is this about the land? Or is it Bree? Walter glanced around the cafe, ensuring no familiar faces were nearby. Both, I think. Things don't add up. With the property, with Bree. Walter's voice was low, matter of fact. She's been different lately. More secretive, more dismissive of the house plans. Arlo leaned back in his chair. Marriage has ups and downs, man. You know that. This isn't a down. It's... Walter searched for the right words. It's like she's waiting for something. Or someone. You think she's cheating? Arlo asked bluntly, keeping his voice down that Walter's face remained impassive. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. How? You going to hire someone? Walter almost smiled. I don't need to. I have access to better resources than any private investigator. Your security clearance doesn't allow for domestic surveillance. Walter, Arlo warned. I'm not using company resources, but there are patterns, discrepancies in our accounts, times when her location doesn't match where she says she is. Arlo studied his friend. What are you going to do? Walter took a sip of his coffee. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to watch. And I'm going to protect what I've built, the money. Walter shook his head. My life. My future. I won't let anyone take that from me. Not again. Arlo's eyes widened slightly at the intensity in Walter's usually calm demeanor. Just don't do anything hasty, okay? Make sure you have proof before you make accusations. I don't make accusations without proof, Walter said. That's not who I am. I know. That's why I'm worried. Because when you do make a move, it's usually nuclear. Walter looked out the window at the busy street. Only if they leave me no choice. The dinner party was Bree's idea, like most of their social gatherings. Walter stood in the kitchen, methodically slicing lemons for drinks while the caterers bustled around him. They could have done this task, but he preferred to keep his hands busy. It gave him a reason to observe without engaging too deeply in what he considered superficial conversations. Walter, are you almost done with those? Bree appeared in the doorway, wearing a new dress he'd never seen before. Deep blue, expensive looking. People are arriving. Almost. He finished the last lemon. Who all is coming again? Bree listed off several names, colleagues, neighbors, a few of her event planning clients. And Drayden, of course. Oh, and my mother decided to join last minute. Walter's knife paused momentarily. Celeste is coming. Don't look so thrilled, Bree said dryly. She's in town for that art exhibition. I could hardly not invite her. Walter arranged the lemon slices on a small serving platter. Of course not. The doorbell rang. Bree smoothed her dress. That'll be the first guests. Come on, put on your good host face. Walter followed her to the door, settling into the role he'd played countless times before. Shake hands. Make appropriate small talk. Refill drinks. Not at the right moments, an hour into the evening. The apartment was filled with the buzz of conversation and laughter. Walter was discussing network security with one of his colleagues when he noticed Drayden Knox enter. The man moved with the confidence of someone who expected all eyes to be on him, and often they were. Tall, perpetually tanned, with a practiced smile that revealed perfectly whitened teeth. Walter watched as Bree hurried over to greet him. She reached up to kiss his cheek, her hand lingering on his arm a moment longer than necessary. Drayden leaned down to whisper something in her ear, and she laughed a different laugh than Walter usually heard. More genuine, more intimate. "Walter, there you are." Drayden spotted him and approached with an outstretched hand. "Great turnout. Your wife certainly knows how to throw a party." Walter shook his hand firmly. "She does. I hear you brought wine." "Ah, yes. A little Barolo I discovered on my last trip to Piedmont. Family vineyard, tiny production. You can't find it stateside." Drayden handed the bottle to Walter. "Should probably let it breathe for a bit." Walter examined the label. "Expensive as expected." "Thank you. I'll open it now." As he turned toward the kitchen, Walter caught sight of Celeste Gardner making her entrance. Bree's mother had a talent for arriving fashionably late to everything. She air-kissed several guests before her eyes landed on Walter. Her smile thinned noticeably. In the kitchen, Walter methodically opened the wine, letting the familiar routine calm him. He was pouring the deep red liquid into a decanter when Celeste appeared. "Walter," she said, her voice carrying that subtle tone of disappointment she reserved specially for him. "Hiding in the kitchen again. Just opening wine, Celeste. Can I get you something?" She examined him like a specimen under glass. "You know what I don't understand about you, Walter? You have the means to give my daughter the life she deserves, yet you insist on living so restrained." Walter continued his task without looking up. "We live comfortably. Comfortable is for retirement homes." She waved a manicured hand dismissively. Bree was raised to expect more. Adventure, luxury, excitement. Not saving pennies for some rustic cabin in the woods. "It's not a cabin," Walter said evenly. "And our finances are not your concern." Celeste laughed, the sound like glass breaking. "My daughter's happiness is my concern. And hoarding money instead of living a little doesn't make for a happy marriage. Does it?" Before Walter could respond, Bree entered with Drayden close behind. "Mother, I was looking for you." Bree's voice was bright, performative. "I see you found Walter. Just catching up with my son-in-law," Celeste said sweetly. Drayden clapped Walter on the shoulder. "Is that my Barolo? Excellent. Shall we bring out? I was just telling Bree about this investment opportunity that's perfect for someone with your background." Walter picked up the decanter. "What kind of opportunity?" "My tech startup is moving into security applications. Military-grade stuff. Right up your alley." Drayden guided them back toward the living room. "The returns are going to be enormous. Early investors are looking at a 5-time multiple minimum." "Sounds too good to be true," Walter remarked. Drayden laughed. "That's what they said about Bitcoin 10 years ago. Some people see opportunity, others see risk. It's about vision." Throughout the evening, Walter observed the subtle dance between Bree and Drayden. The casual touches, the inside jokes, the way they seemed to gravitate toward each other in the crowded room. Later, as guests began to leave, Walter overheard a conversation between Bree and her mother in the hallway. "He's perfect," Celeste was saying. "Ambitious, connected, generous. Why couldn't you have met him first?" "Mother, please," Bree hissed. "Not here. I'm just saying, darling. Walter is adequate, but he'll never understand what someone like you needs." Walter moved quietly back to the living room, his face betraying nothing of what he'd heard. After the last guest departed, Bree kicked off her heels with a sigh. "That went well, don't you think?" Walter collected empty glasses from the coffee table. Drayden seemed very friendly tonight. Bree paused, then resumed removing her earrings. "He's friendly with everyone. That's how he networks." "Is that what you were doing in the study?" "Networking." Her hand froze midway to her ear. "What?" "You and Drayden. In the study. For 20 minutes. Bree rolled her eyes. "He was showing me photos of a venue in Milan he thinks would be perfect for my client's destination wedding." "Don't be paranoid, Walter." "I'm not paranoid. I'm observant." Walter placed the glasses in the sink. "And I observed my wife being unusually familiar with another man." Bree marched over to him. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" I'm not accusing you of anything, Walter said calmly. I'm asking what's going on. Nothing is going on. God, this is why we never have fun. You analyze everything to death. She threw her hands up. Drayden is a colleague and a friend. He's helping my business grow. Unlike you, who'd prefer I stay small and manageable. Walter didn't respond, merely continued cleaning up. I'm going to bed, Bree announced. You can sleep in the guest room if you're going to be like this. After she stormed off, Walter remained in the kitchen, methodically wiping down counters. His movements were precise, controlled. He pulled out his phone and made a note in a secured app. Then he sent a text to Arlo. The cracks are showing. Need to accelerate the plan. Monday morning found Walter at his desk at Quantum Shield, the federal security contractor where he'd worked for 8 years. Lines of code scrolled across his dual monitors as he tested a new firewall implementation. The office hummed with the quiet intensity of technical professionals, each focused on their specialized tasks that a knock on his open door pulled his attention away from a screen. Kendra Bell stood there, tablet in hand. Tall, with short cropped hair and intelligent eyes that missed little. Got a minute? She asked. Walter nodded and gestured to the chair across from his desk. Kendra closed the door before sitting down, unusual for routine matters. Found something odd during the back-end security scan, she said, her voice low despite the closed door. Thought you should know about it directly. She handed him the tablet. Walter scrolled through the data, his expression unchanging even as his pulse quickened slightly. Someone's been running a tracking app on my work device, he said. Not a question, Kendra nodded. Installed remotely about 3 months ago. Sophisticated enough to evade our regular scans, but it triggered an anomaly during the deep dive. Can you trace it? Tried. It's bouncing through multiple VPNs. Very deliberate. Walter handed the tablet back. What about my personal devices? Have you checked them? Kendra hesitated. That would be outside protocol. Since when has that stopped you? Walter asked, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. She returned the almost smile. I'll need your devices. Off the record. Walter pulled his personal phone from his pocket and unlocked it before handing it over. Keep this between us for now. Kendra took the phone. Always do. She paused at the door. Walter, whatever this is, be careful. I always am. After she left, Walter leaned back in his chair, mind racing through possibilities. 3 months. Right around when Drayden Knox had first appeared in their social circle. Not a coincidence that he opened a secure browser window and logged into his personal banking portal. Everything appeared normal, but Walter wasn't looking at the balances. He was checking the login history. Multiple access points from unfamiliar IP addresses. Someone had been monitoring his accounts. Walter closed the browser and pulled a small notebook from his desk drawer. Using a cipher system he'd developed years ago, he made several entries. Then he sent a text to Arlo. Need to meet. Tonight. Usual place. Urgent. The reply came immediately. 7 p.m.? Walter confirmed and returned to his work, outwardly unchanged. Inside, pieces were falling into place, forming a pattern he'd suspected but hoped wasn't true. Later that afternoon, Kendra returned. Her expression told him everything before she spoke. Your personal phone has the same tracking software. More extensive version. Actually, keylogger, GPS tracking, remote access to camera and microphone. Walter nodded once, taking back his phone. Can you remove it without alerting whoever installed it? Already did, but I left a ghost version running. It'll feed fake data now. She studied him. Walter, this is serious. This is state-level surveillance software. Not something an amateur would have access to, or someone with connections to military-grade security applications. Walter said quietly. Kendra's eyes widened slightly in understanding. You know who did this? I have suspicions. Should I be worried about you? Walter looked at her, seeing the genuine concern. No, but I appreciate your asking. After Kendra left, Walter remained at his desk long after most colleagues had gone home. He systematically checked his other accounts, finding similar intrusions. Not just banking email, cloud storage, even his fitness app. Someone had been building a complete profile of his movements, communications, and finances. When he finally left the office, the parking lot was nearly empty. He sat in his car, for several minutes, organizing his thoughts. Then he pulled out a burner phone he'd purchased months ago, one Bree knew nothing about, and made a call. "I need access to the contingency account," he told the person on the other end. Immediately. That evening, at a small bar on the edge of town, Walter laid out the situation to Arlo. His friend listened without interrupting, his accountant's mind processing the financial implications. "So they're after the money," Arlo said when Walter finished. "They're after everything," Walter corrected. "The money is just the beginning." "What are you going to do?" Walter took a sip of his whiskey. "Let them think they've won." Arlo frowned. "I don't follow. I've been preparing for this possibility for months. Setting up dummy accounts, creating false trails. You suspected Bree was planning to steal from you? Why didn't you just confront her?" Walter's eyes were cold. "Because I needed to know how far they would go. How many people are involved? Whether this is just about money or something more. And now I spring the trap." Walter pulled out a USB drive and slid it across the table. "Everything you need is on here. Account numbers, access codes, transfer schedules. You know what to do." Arlo pocketed the drive. "This is going to get ugly, Walter." "It was ugly the moment they betrayed me." Walter finished his drink. "I just need to know one thing." "What's that? Can I count on your loyalty?" Arlo met his gaze steadily. "Always have, always will." "But Walter, what happens after? When this is all over?" "I build my house," Walter said simply. "Just like I planned. With or without Bree." As they parted ways in the parking lot, Arlo asked one final question. "When do you think they'll make their move?" Walter looked up at the night sky, clear and star-filled above the mountain town. "Soon. They're getting impatient. And impatient people make mistakes." Walter woke before his alarm, a habit formed in childhood when his father would rouse him for early morning jobs. The space beside him in bed was empty, the sheets cold. Bree hadn't come home last night. Her text claimed a late event planning session, followed by staying at Dez's place. Walter had replied with a simple "okay." Knowing it was a lie, he showered and dressed methodically, choosing his standard work attire: charcoal slacks, blue button-down, no tie. The routine was comforting, a counterpoint to the chaos he anticipated. Exactly 8:15 a.m., Walter sat at his home office desk and opened his laptop. He navigated to his primary bank account and logged in. The balance showed $3,217.42. His house fund account, the one that had held $250,000 just days before, displayed $0.00. Walter didn't flinch. He navigated to the transaction history, which showed a series of transfers to 4 different accounts over the previous 36 hours. From there, the money had been converted to cryptocurrency and vanished into the digital ether. His phone chimed with a text message. "Bree, it's for something bigger than your small dreams." Walter read the message twice, then set the phone down. He opened a secure email account and sent a pre-composed message to 3 different recipients. The subject line read, "Contingency Alpha initiated." He was midway through his second email when his phone rang. "Arlo, they did it," Arlo said without preamble. "The alert just triggered. All the money's gone." "I know," Walter replied calmly. "The transfer's completed about an hour ago. Are you okay?" Walter considered the question. "I'm exactly as I expected to be." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." Walter closed his laptop. "Have you secured the real accounts?" "Yes. Everything's locked down, just like we planned. They can't touch the actual money." "Good. Now we wait." "For what?" "For them to realize they haven't won." After ending the call, Walter stood and walked to the window. The mountains looked particularly clear today, distant peaks sharp against the blue sky. He thought about his father, who'd taught him 2 critical lessons: how to build things that last, and how to recognize when something was broken beyond repair. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Bree. "I never meant to hurt you, but we want different things." Walter didn't respond. Instead, he gathered his keys and wallet and left the apartment. He had a meeting with a real estate agent to view the land parcel in Black Mountain. Life continuing as planned, despite everything. The property was exactly as he'd envisioned: 5 acres of gently sloping land backed by forest, with mountain views to the west. The agent, a middle-aged woman named Janet, seemed confused by his calm demeanor. "And you're looking to build right away?" she asked as they stood on what would be the home site. "Yes. I already have preliminary plans drawn up." "Wonderful. And will your wife be joining us for a second look?" Most couples want to decide together on such a big purchase. Walter gazed at the view. "No, this decision is mine alone." Janet's expression shifted to understanding. "I see. Well, the asking price is firm, but I think we could." Walter's phone interrupted her. Kendra calling. He excused himself and moved a few steps away. "We have a problem," Kendra said without greeting. "Someone trying to access your secured work files remotely, using your credentials." "Block it," Walter instructed, "and initiate the trace protocol we discussed." "Already done." "Walter, this is advanced. They're using tools only someone with serious connections would have. Or someone sleeping with such a person," Walter said flatly. A pause. "This is personal, isn't it?" "Very. I'll be in the office in 30 minutes. Don't alert anyone else." Walter returned to Janet. "I'll take it. Full asking price. Have the paperwork ready this afternoon." As he drove back to the city, another text came through from Bree. "You should have shared more. Been more generous. This is your fault." For the first time, Walter smiled. Everything was proceeding as anticipated. Walter pulled up to Celeste Gardner's Tudor-style home in the historic district of Asheville. The house, like Celeste herself, projected old money and rigid propriety. He sat in his car for several minutes, gathering his thoughts. This confrontation had been inevitable from the moment he married Bree 7 years ago. Celeste had made it clear then that she considered him temporary as stepping stone to something better for her daughter. He approached the front door and rang the bell. Classical music drifted from inside. A Bach concerto played too loudly. Deliberate, Walter thought, to cover conversations. The door opened to reveal Celeste, impeccably dressed as always, a glass of white wine in hand despite the early hour. "Walter," she said, surprise briefly crossing her features before smoothing into a practiced smile. "What an unexpected visit. Is Bree here?" he asked directly to Celeste's smile tightened. "My daughter? Why would she be here?" "Because she's hiding from me." Walter maintained eye contact. "After stealing $250,000. The facade cracked. Triumph flashed in Celeste's eyes before she composed herself. "I think you'd better come inside." Walter followed her into the living room, declining her insincere offer of a drink. The room was as he remembered: antique furniture, Persian rugs, family photos that conspicuously excluded him. "I don't know what you're talking about, Walter," Celeste said, settling onto a velvet sofa. "Bree mentioned you were having issues. That's all I know." "Stop lying, Celeste. You've never been good at it." Her eyebrows rose. "Excuse me, you helped plan this. You, Bree, and Drayden Knox. The three of you conspiring to rob me." Celeste laughed, a brittle sound. "Rob you? Of what? Money you refused to spend? Money you hoarded while my daughter lived like a middle-class nobody. Where is she?" "Not here." Celeste took a long sip of wine. "And I wouldn't tell you if she was. You've controlled her for years with your obsessive saving and planning. She deserves better." Walter stood very still. "Did you know Drayden Knox isn't what he claims to be?" This caught her off guard. "What do you mean? His tech startup? It doesn't exist except on paper. His investments? Fabricated. He's a con man, Celeste. And you helped him target your own daughter. That's ridiculous." But uncertainty had crept into her voice. "Is it? Did you do any research on him at all? Or were you so desperate to get Bree away from me that you pushed her toward the first flashy alternative?" Celeste stood now, anger overcoming caution. "You know nothing about what Bree needs. She was raised for a certain life. A life of connections and influence. Not playing house in the woods with some IT worker who thinks saving money is a personality. Where is she?" Walter repeated that. Celeste's mouth curved into a smug smile. "Thanks for your naivety, Walter. Your money has secured your wife's future. Just not with you." Walter laughed, then not from humor, but from the cold satisfaction of confirmation. "You think that was the real money?" The smile froze on Celeste's face. "What? The money they stole? You think that was my actual savings?" Walter stepped closer. "Your daughter married an IT security specialist who works on protecting government assets. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when someone installed tracking software on my devices? When someone started monitoring my accounts? Celeste's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about. The accounts they emptied were decoys. Set up months ago when I first suspected something was wrong. The real money is secure, untouchable. You're lying, Celeste whispered. Bree said what Drayden told her to say. And Drayden only saw what I wanted him to see. Walter's voice remained calm, controlled. Tell Bree I know about the condo in Raleigh. I know about the offshore accounts. And I know exactly who suggested using my identity to secure the financing. Celeste gripped her wine glass so tightly that her knuckles whitened. Get out of my house. Gladly. But tell Bree one more thing. Walter moved to the door. The man she married doesn't forgive betrayal. Not ever. As he left, Celeste called after him, her voice shaking with rage. She never loved you. She was settling. We both knew it. Walter didn't look back. In his car, he sent a text to Arlo. Phase 2 complete. They took the bait. Walter sat in his office at Quantum Shield, reviewing system logs on his secondary monitor while his primary screen displayed complex security protocols. To any observer, he appeared focused on routine work. But his mind was processing the events of the past several months, reconstructing the trap he'd laid 0.8 months earlier. Seated in this same chair, he had noticed the first anomaly. A small discrepancy in a joint credit card statement, a charge at an upscale hotel bar downtown on a night when Bree claimed to be at a client meeting in Charlotte. He'd said nothing, merely noted it. Then came other signs, hushed phone conversations that ended when he entered the room. Unexplained absences, new friends whose names were mentioned but who never materialized at their gatherings, increased spending on clothes and personal items. Walter had been methodical, gathering evidence rather than confronting. Trust, once questioned, could never be fully restored. He preferred certainty before action. The breakthrough came when he installed a security system in their apartment ostensibly for protection, actually for surveillance. The system logged entry and exit times, recorded conversations in common areas. He discovered Bree bringing someone into their home while he traveled for work. Drayden Knox, the supposed tech entrepreneur who had recently joined their social circle. Walter closed his eyes, remembering the cold shock of watching the security footage. Bree leading Drayden into their bedroom. The betrayal made physical. That night, he had initiated his contingency plan. First, securing his actual assets by creating a trust fund under a limited liability company, with Arlo as the financial manager. Then establishing false accounts, complete with convincing transaction histories and login credentials. He had deliberately left breadcrumbs, making these accounts appear to hold his true savings. When he detected the tracking software on his devices, he'd allowed it to function, feeding it carefully curated information bank statements showing regular deposits into the decoy accounts, emails discussing the land purchase and house plans, web searches for construction loans and builders. All the while, he had been building a case, documenting Bree's affair, tracking the conspiracy between her, Drayden, and Celeste, collecting evidence of their plan to empty his accounts and assume his identity for loans and credit. Walter opened his eyes as Kendra knocked on his office door. You should see this, she said, placing a tablet on his desk. The screen showed a real estate listing for a luxury condo in Raleigh. Recently purchased. The buyer, Walter Hale. I didn't buy this, he said. I know. Kendra closed the door. But someone using your identity did. 3 days ago. I found it while running that trace we discussed. Walter nodded. I expected something like this. They needed somewhere to live after taking the money. Kendra studied him. You knew this was coming. You've been planning for it. Yes. Why didn't you stop them before they went this far? Walter's expression remained neutral. Because I needed them to commit actual crimes. Suspicion isn't enough. Planning isn't enough. They had to act. And now I have everything I need. Walter handed back the tablet. Thank you, Kendra. For everything. She hesitated. Is there anything else I can do? Walter considered her question. Yes, if you're willing. I need someone I can trust to help document the evidence. Someone who understands digital forensics. Kendra nodded. I'm in. After she left, Walter pulled out his secure phone and dialed a number. "It's time," he said when the call connected. "They've made their move. Initiate the final phase." That evening, Walter returned to his apartment. It felt empty, not just from Bree's absence, but from the hollowness of what their marriage had become. He walked through each room, taking stock of what was missing. Bree had returned while he was at work and taken her personal items, jewelry, clothes. She'd also taken several things that weren't hers, artwork they'd purchased together, small electronics, the safe from his office. The safe made him smile grimly. It had been part of the trap, filled with outdated financial documents and a USB drive containing convincing but ultimately useless data. Walter opened his laptop and logged into a cloud storage account Bree knew nothing about. There, organized in meticulous folders, was every piece of evidence he'd gathered: security camera footage, bank records, credit card statements, phone logs, emails, texts. The complete chronicle of betrayal. He began systematically downloading the files he would need for the next phase. As documents transferred, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He had loved Bree once, or thought he had. Now he wondered if he had merely been in love with the idea of her, the beautiful, vivacious woman who had somehow chosen him. But that wasn't accurate either, was it? She hadn't chosen him. She had selected him, targeted him for his stability and income. A stepping stone, as Celeste had implied. Her true nature had been there all along, beneath the charm and smiles. He simply hadn't wanted to see it. That Walter's phone buzzed with a text from Arlo. "They're using the credit cards. Making large purchases." "Let them," Walter replied. "The more charges, the stronger our case." That he continued working late into the night, assembling the evidence that would form the foundation of his counterattack. Not out of anger, though that existed beneath his calm exterior. Not out of vengeance, though that would come as a natural consequence. Walter worked methodically because that was who he was. A builder, a planner, a man who had learned from his father that the strongest structures were those with the deepest foundations. Morning, everything was in place. Walter showered and dressed with particular care, selecting one of his better suits. Today would be decisive. As he left the apartment, his phone chimed with a new email. From Bree. Subject line: "We need to talk." Walter deleted it without reading the content. They were well past talking now. The condo in Raleigh stood on the 22nd floor of a glass tower downtown, with views spanning the city. Walter sat in his car across the street, observing the building's entrance. According to the information Kendra had provided, Bree and Drayden had moved in 4 days ago. The purchase price, $1.2 million, with a mortgage fraudulently obtained using Walter's identity. He had no intention of confronting them directly. That wasn't his way. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a call to the attorney he'd retained the previous week. "Everything is prepared," the lawyer confirmed. "The filings will be submitted this afternoon. Do you want to proceed with all actions simultaneously, or stagger them?" "All at once," Walter replied. "No warnings." "Very well. The cease and desist letter regarding the property will be delivered today. The divorce papers and financial freeze will follow. The criminal complaints will be filed with both local and federal authorities by end of day. And the evidence, all properly submitted and verified. We've built a strong case, Mr. Hale." After ending the call, Walter remained watching the building. Part of him wanted to see Bree's face when she received the legal notices. But that was emotion talking, and emotions clouded judgment. He started his car and drove away. Back in Asheville, Walter met with Arlo at the accountant's office. The space reflected Arlo's personality: organized, but not sterile, professional, but comfortable. "All the accounts are secured," Arlo confirmed, sliding a folder across his desk. "The real money is untouchable. I've also frozen the joint accounts and credit cards, as you requested." Walter nodded. "Any activity before they were frozen?" "Plenty." Arlo pointed to a printed statement. "Luxury purchases mainly. Jewelry, electronics, clothing. About $60,000 in 3 days. On my cards." "Yes, but we've documented everything. The credit card companies are already investigating the fraud claims." Walter reviewed the papers methodically. "What about the trust? Is it secure?" "Completely. The LLC structure is rock solid. They can't touch it, even if they knew about it. Good. Walter closed the folder. I'm closing on the land tomorrow. Arlo's eyebrows rose. You're still buying the property? Now. Especially now. The house was never about Bree. It was about creating something lasting. Something true. Walter's voice remained steady. That hasn't changed. Arlo leaned back in his chair. You're the calmest betrayed husband I've ever seen. What would anger accomplish? Walter asked. It wouldn't return what was taken. It wouldn't restore trust. Better to focus on rebuilding. Still, most men would want revenge. Walter almost smiled. This isn't revenge, Arlo. It's justice. There's a difference. That evening, Walter returned to the apartment to find Bree waiting outside the door. Her normally perfect appearance was disheveled, her eyes darting nervously as he approached. What have you done? She demanded, her voice shrill. Our cards are declined. The bank accounts are frozen. I have lawyers calling me about identity theft charges. Walter unlocked the door and entered the apartment. Bree followed, anger overriding caution. Did you hear me? What did you do? Walter set his keys on the counter. I protected what's mine. That money was ours. We're married. Yes, we are. For now. Walter faced her. But marriages are built on trust, Bree. And you destroyed that when you started sleeping with Drayden Knox in our bed while I was away on business trips. The color drained from her face. You knew. I know everything. The affair. The conspiracy to empty the accounts. Using my identity to purchase the condo. All of it documented and submitted to the authorities. Bree's shock gave way to calculation. Walter, please. It's not what you think. Drayden manipulated me. He said, stop lying. Walter cut her off. It insults both of us. Fine. Her facade cracked, revealing the cold person beneath. You want the truth? I was never going to stay with you forever. You're boring, Walter. Predictable. All those years of saving and planning for a simple house in the mountains? That's not a life. That's a prison. A prison you were happy to occupy while spending my money. Not enough of it. You could have given me everything I wanted, but you were too obsessed with your precious future. She spat the word. Drayden understands what life should be. Excitement, luxury, adventure, and theft. Does he understand that too? Walter's voice remained calm. Because that's what he's done. That's what you've both done. And there are consequences. Bree laughed bitterly. Consequences? The money is gone, Walter. Converted to crypto and moved offshore. You'll never get it back. I already have it. She stared at him. What? The money you stole was from decoy accounts. Set up months ago when I first suspected your betrayal. The real money was never at risk. Disbelief crossed her features. You're lying. The Walter you thought you married might have lied. The actual man standing before you doesn't need to. He walked to the door and opened it. Divorce papers will be delivered tomorrow. Don't come back here. You can't just throw me out. This is my home too. The lease is in my name only. Another precaution I took. There's a hotel receipt on the counter one night, paid in advance. After that, you're Drayden's problem. Walter's tone was final. Though I suspect he'll be less interested in you once he realizes you failed to deliver the money you promised. Bree's composure crumbled completely. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, Bree. These are the consequences of your own choices. I'll fight you, she threatened. I'll tell everyone you abused me, that you controlled me financially. That, you'll lose. Walter stated simply. Every conversation in this apartment for the past 6 months has been recorded. Every text message saved. Every email preserved. Make false accusations, and I'll add perjury to the charges against you. Bree stared at him, seeing him clearly perhaps for the first time. I never really knew you, did I? No, Walter agreed. You didn't. You saw what you wanted to see, a simple, predictable man you could manipulate. That was your mistake. After she left, Walter moved through the apartment, opening windows to clear the lingering scent of her perfume. His phone buzzed with a message from Kendra. Federal Cybercrimes Unit is interested in the evidence. They want to meet tomorrow. Walter texted back his agreement. The machinery of justice was in motion now. Unstoppable like all well-designed systems, that he poured himself a measure of whiskey and looked out at the mountains in the distance. Tomorrow he would own a piece of them. The first concrete step toward the future he'd always planned, one built on solid ground, not shifting sand. The federal building in downtown Asheville housed various government offices, including a satellite location for the FBI Cyber Division. Walter sat in a conference room on the third floor, surrounded by printed evidence and digital displays. Across from him were two federal agents and the district attorney. "Mr. Hale," Agent Lowell began, reviewing the documents before him, "I want to be clear about what you're alleging. You believe your wife, Brielle Hale, conspired with Drayden Knox to commit identity theft, wire fraud, and grand larceny." "I don't believe it," Walter replied evenly. "I've documented it." He gestured to the evidence spread across the table. Bank records showing unauthorized transfers, credit card statements with fraudulent charges, loan applications bearing forged signatures, real estate documents for the Raleigh condo, purchased using his stolen identity. "And you've provided security footage from your apartment showing Ms. Hale and Mr. Knox accessing your home office, correct?" the district attorney asked. "Yes," along with recorded conversations discussing their plans. Agent Lowell leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, I have to ask. You work in cybersecurity. You noticed the intrusions into your accounts months ago. Why wait until after they committed these crimes to come forward?" Walter met his gaze. "Because I wanted irrefutable proof. Suspicion isn't enough for a conviction. So you created decoy accounts. Let them think they were stealing your actual savings." "Correct. That shows considerable forethought, Mr. Hale. I'm a methodical person, Agent Lowell." The second agent, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "What about Drayden Knox? You've made allegations about his business practices as well." Walter nodded toward one of the digital displays. "My colleague Kendra Bell compiled that information. Knox claims to run a tech startup developing security applications, but the company exists only on paper. He's been soliciting investors using fabricated financial projections and non-existent product demos. A Ponzi scheme, the district attorney clarified. "Essentially," Walter agreed. "He uses new investor money to pay returns to earlier investors, creating the illusion of success. He's also been laundering money through various shell companies." The meeting continued for 3 more hours as Walter walked them through the evidence piece by piece. His presentation was thorough, dispassionate, factual. No emotional appeals, no exaggerations. Just the documented truth that, as the meeting concluded, Agent Lowell shook Walter's hand. "We have more than enough to proceed with federal charges. The district attorney will handle the state-level prosecution." "How soon?" Walter asked. "We'll move quickly," the agent promised. "Given the nature of the crimes and the possibility they might flee, we're preparing arrest warrants today." Walter nodded. "I appreciate your thoroughness." Outside the federal building, Walter called Kendra. "It's done. They're moving forward with charges." "Good," she replied. "Listen, I've been thinking about what you said about making this public. I have a contact at Tech Truth, that online whistleblower blog. They'd be interested in Drayden's fraudulent startup. Do it," Walter authorized. "But keep my name out of it. Focus on the investment fraud, not my personal situation." "Will do." "Walter, are you okay?" The question caught him off guard. Few people asked about his well-being. Fewer still genuinely cared about the answer. "I'm fine," he said automatically, then reconsidered. "Actually, I don't know. But I will be. If you need anything, thank you, Kendra. I'll let you know." The next morning, Walter was in his office at Quantum Shield when the news broke. Kendra appeared in his doorway, tablet in hand. "It's happening," she said, showing him the screen. The Tech Truth website displayed a breaking story. Exclusive, revolutionary tech startup exposed as elaborate fraud. The article detailed Drayden Knox's fraudulent business practices, complete with evidence of falsified investor documents, non-existent products, and money laundering schemes. Within hours, other technology and business news sites had picked up the story. Walter watched from a distance as Drayden's carefully constructed image collapsed. By afternoon, the FBI had issued a statement confirming an ongoing investigation into Knox Technologies that Walter's phone buzzed with a text from Arlo, watching the news. "Did you do this? Justice takes many forms," Walter replied. Later that day, Walter received a call from Agent Lowell. Thought you want to know? We executed the warrants. Knox was arrested at a private airstrip trying to board a charter flight to the Cayman Islands. Your wife was with him. And the condo, asset forfeiture unit, is securing it now. Since it was purchased with fraudulently obtained funds, it'll be seized as evidence. After ending the call, Walter drove to Black Mountain to visit his land, now officially his, the closing having been completed that morning. He stood on the ridge where his house would someday stand, watching the sun begin its descent behind distant peaks. His phone rang again. Bree's mother. How dare you? Celeste began without greeting, her voice shaking with rage. Do you have any idea what you've done? My daughter is in jail. She's being processed like a common criminal. She is a criminal, Walter stated. As are you potentially. The authorities are very interested in your role in this conspiracy. I had nothing to do with. Save it for your attorney, Celeste. They have the recordings from your house, the planning sessions, your suggestions about how to access my accounts. A long silence followed. When Celeste spoke again, her voice had lost its imperious edge. What do you want? Nothing from you. Ever again. There must be something, some arrangement we can come to. No, Walter said simply. There isn't. He ended the call and put the phone on silent, turning his attention back to the mountains. This land, this future, was untainted by betrayal. Here, he would build something true. 3 weeks after the arrests, Walter sat in his attorney's office reviewing the final divorce settlement. The process had been expedited given the criminal charges against Bree, who remained in custody awaiting trial after being denied bail. She's agreed to all terms, the attorney explained. Frankly, she's not in a position to negotiate. With the pending criminal charges and overwhelming evidence, the judge would have ruled in your favor regardless. Walter nodded, signing where indicated. And the financial separation is complete. Yes, all joint accounts have been closed. The court recognized that the funds were solely your earnings, and given the attempted theft, awarded no alimony or division of assets to your soon-to-be ex-wife. What about the criminal case? The attorney adjusted his glasses. The prosecutors are confident. The federal charges alone carry potential sentences of 15 to 20 years. The state charges could add more. They've offered a plea deal, but from what I understand, Ms. Hale is still maintaining her innocence. Walter finished signing the papers and closed the folder. Thank you for your efficiency. Of course. I should mention, Mr. Hale, your wife has requested to see you. Several times, according to the prosecutor's office. Walter stood. Ex-wife. And no, I have no interest in meeting with her. I expected as much, but felt obligated to pass along the request. As Walter left the building, his phone rang. An unfamiliar number with a county jail prefix. He declined the call. That evening, Arlo came over to the apartment with takeout and beer. They sat on the balcony, the spring air warm and fragrant with blooming trees. So it's official, Arlo said, raising his bottle. Freedom. Walter took a drink, but didn't toast. It's not about freedom. It was never about being trapped. No. Then what was it about? Truth. Walter said after a moment. Building a life on solid ground. Arlo studied his friend. You've lost weight. You sleeping. Enough. That's not an answer. Walter shrugged. I'm adjusting. To being right? To winning. Arlo shook his head. Most guys would be celebrating. You took down everyone who tried to hurt you. You kept your money, your dignity. You bought your dream property. By any measure, you've won. It's not about winning either. Then what is it about, Walter? Because from where I sit, you got everything you wanted, but you look hollow. Walter set his beer down. Did I ever tell you about my father's tools? His carpentry tools? The ones you keep in storage. Yes. When I was 10, I asked him why he didn't buy new ones. His were worn, some damaged. He told me tools that build things that last don't need to be pretty or new. They just need to be true. Walter looked out at the mountains. I thought my marriage was a tool for building something lasting. But it wasn't true. So build something else, Arlo suggested. The house. A new relationship eventually. Your life isn't over because Bree betrayed you. I know. They sat in companionable silence until Arlo spoke again. Bree called me yesterday. Walter's expression didn't change. What did she want? To talk to you. Said you're refusing her calls, ignoring her letters. I am. She claims she can explain everything. That it wasn't her idea. That Drayden manipulated her. Probably what she's telling her attorneys too. Arlo hesitated. Maybe you should hear her out. Not for her sake, but for yours. For closure. Walter considered this. Would you forgive someone who tried to steal your life's work? Who conspired against you with others? Who shared your bed while planning your downfall? Probably not. Arlo admitted. But I might want to look them in the eye one last time. To understand. I already understand. Walter said quietly. Some betrayals can't be explained away. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. The next day, against his better judgment, Walter drove to the county detention center. He had no intention of forgiving Bree, but Arlo's words about closure had resonated. Perhaps there was value in one final conversation, a period at the end of their story. The visiting area was stark tables bolted to the floor, uncomfortable plastic chairs, guards stationed at regular intervals. Walter waited, his face impassive as Bree was led and wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, face devoid of makeup. She sat across from him, eyes widening slightly at his actual presence. You came. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, Walter replied. Thank you for coming. Her voice was softer than he remembered, performance stripped away by circumstance. I've been trying to reach you. I know. Walter, I need to explain. No, he interrupted. You don't. I already know what happened. I have the evidence. The recordings. The documented conspiracy. There's nothing you can say that will change the facts. Facts don't tell the whole story, she insisted. Drayden, he has a way of making you believe things. Of making you want things you never thought you'd want. You were unhappy before Drayden, Walter stated. You said so yourself. Many times. To your mother. To Des. Even to me, though I chose not to hear it. Bree's eyes filled with tears. I was confused. Lost. You were so focused on the future that I felt invisible in the present. That may be true, Walter acknowledged. But being unhappy doesn't justify theft, or fraud, or betrayal. I know. The tears spilled onto her cheeks. I know that now. I made terrible mistakes. But Walter, we can start over. After this is all behind us. I still care about you. I still... Stop. Walter's voice was quiet but firm. This isn't a reconciliation. This is goodbye. Please, Walter. Everyone deserves a second chance. No, they don't. He met her gaze directly. I bury my father's tools with him. He built a life from nothing. You just stole what I built. I don't forgive thieves. Bree's face crumpled. So that's it? 7 years of marriage. And you could just walk away without looking back. You walked away first, Walter reminded her. When you conspire with Drayden. When you transfer my money. When you use my identity to buy your love nest. Those were your choices. What about your choices? She challenged. Setting traps? Recording private conversations? Creating fake accounts to entice me into committing crimes. I didn't entice you into anything. I documented what you were already doing. What you had already decided to do. Bree wiped her tears with the back of her hand. What happens now? You face the consequences of your actions. I rebuild my life. Without me? Yes. She studied him, searching for any crack in his resolve. Will you testify against me? At the trial? If required. And Drayden? Will you testify against him too? Yes. Bree laughed bitterly. You know, I always thought you were the predictable one. The safe choice. But you're ruthless, Walter. Underneath that quiet exterior, you're colder than anyone I've ever known. Walter stood. Not cold. Principled. There's a difference. Wait, she called as he turned to leave. What about my things? My clothes, my jewelry? Whatever was truly yours has been boxed and sent to your mother's house. Anything purchased with joint funds or my money remains with me. And what will you do with it all? My life. Walter paused. I'll sell it and use the money to build my house. As he walked away, Bree called after him one last time. I never meant for it to end like this. Walter didn't turn back. Some endings couldn't be rewritten, no matter how much one might wish otherwise. 6 months passed. Fall painted the mountains in fiery colors, oranges, reds, golds. Walter stood on his land in Black Mountain, now cleared for construction. Foundation work would begin the following week, the permits secured, The builder contracted. The criminal cases had progressed rapidly. Drayden, facing multiple federal charges for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy, had accepted a plea deal in exchange for testimony against his co-conspirators. Bree, failing to secure a similar arrangement, was awaiting trial with increasingly dim prospects as more evidence emerged. Celeste had avoided criminal charges, but faced civil lawsuit from investors defrauded in Drayden's schemes she had unwittingly promoted among her social circles. Her reputation in Asheville was destroyed, her financial security compromised. Last Walter heard, she was selling her historic home and moving to Florida. He felt no satisfaction in their downfall, no joy in their suffering, only a quiet acknowledgement that actions had consequences, and those consequences had arrived as expected. The sound of tires on gravel pulled Walter from his thoughts. A car approached up the newly graded driveway, Kendra's modest sedan. She parked and joined him at the edge of the cleared area, surveying the terrain. "So this is it," she said. "Your future home." Walter nodded. "Breaking ground next week." "It's beautiful land." Kendra turned slowly, taking in the mountain views. "Peaceful." "Yes." They stood in comfortable silence until Kendra spoke again. "I brought those letters you asked about, from your father's effects." She handed him a small wooden box, weathered with age. Walter accepted it carefully, running his thumb over his father's initials carved into the lid. "Thank you for retrieving this from storage," he said. "I haven't looked at these since he died." "May I ask why now?" Walter considered the question. "Perspective, I suppose. Remembering why I started this journey." Kendra didn't press further. Instead, she walked the perimeter of the foundation outline, marked with wooden stakes and orange string. "The house will face west." "Yes, for the sunset views. The workshop will be to the north, separate but connected by a covered walkway." "You've thought of everything." "I've had time to plan," Walter said simply. They walked the property together, discussing the construction timeline, the materials, the design elements. Kendra asked thoughtful questions, showed genuine interest. Not for the first time, Walter appreciated her directness, her lack of pretense. "Will you stay for dinner?" he asked as they returned to the cars. "There's a decent place in town." Kendra smiled. "I'd like that." Over dinner at a local restaurant, their conversation shifted from the house to work, to books they'd read recently, to Kendra's background in digital forensics. Walter found himself listening more than talking, genuinely interested in her perspectives. "You seem different," Kendra noted as they finished their meal. "More present." Walter considered this. "Maybe I am. The past 6 months have been clarifying." "In what way?" "I spent years believing I was building one kind of life, only to discover it was built on false assumptions. That requires reassessment." Kendra nodded. "And has your reassessment led to any conclusions?" "A few," Walter replied. "That integrity matters more than appearances. That loyalty should be earned, not assumed. That some failures are necessary for growth. Wise conclusions, not wisdom. Experience." Walter paid the bill despite her protests. "Thank you for dinner. And for bringing the letters." "Of course. Anytime." They parted in the parking lot with a simple goodbye. No commitments, no complications. Just mutual respect and the possibility of something more someday when the time was right. Back at his temporary rental cabin, Walter opened the wooden box Kendra had brought. Inside were dozens of letters, some his father had written but never sent, others from friends and colleagues singing his praises. Walter had discovered them after his father's death, tangible evidence of the man's impact on others despite his humble circumstances. He selected one envelope at random and carefully extracted the letter inside. His father's handwriting, slanted and precise, filled the page. The letter was addressed to Walter himself, dated shortly before his father's final illness. As he read, one passage stood out. "Don't chase revenge, son. Build something so great, it makes them wish they stayed loyal. Success isn't about making others regret their choices. It's about being at peace with your own." Walter folded the letter carefully and returned it to the box. His father, a simple carpenter with an 8th-grade education, had understood what Walter was only now learning. The best response to betrayal wasn't retaliation, but creation. The next morning, Walter met with the builder on site. They walked the property, discussing the foundation details, the timber framing, the utility connections. Walter had revised the house plans in recent months, simplifying some elements, expanding others. The core remained the same, a solid structure built to last generations. "We can start digging Monday," the builder confirmed. "Weather permitting." "Good." Walter handed him a check for the first installment. "I'll be on site as much as possible. Most clients prefer to keep their distance during construction." "I'm not most clients," Walter replied. "This house is more than an investment." After the builder left, Walter remained on the land alone. He opened his father's box of letters again, selecting another at random. This one, unlike the others, contained a single sheet with just a few lines. "A house is made of walls and beams. A home is built with love and dreams. Remember the difference, son." Walter smiled, not out of happiness, but completion. The house might take years to finish, the healing perhaps longer still, but he would build both day by day, with the same patience and precision his father had taught him. He pulled out his phone and texted Kendra. "Would you like to see the progress next weekend?" Her reply came quickly. "I'd like that very much." Walter tucked the letters away and surveyed his land one final time before leaving. In the distance, storm clouds gathered over the mountains, not threatening, but promising renewal. A quiet storm, bringing change rather than destruction. He was ready for both. 3 days after construction began on Walter's house, Drayden Knox made his final play from behind bars. His attorney approached the federal prosecutors with an unexpected revelation. An NDA signed by Bree months earlier, supposedly for business secrecy regarding Knox Technologies. The document, upon examination, proved to be a liability waiver, one that effectively made Bree the sole responsible party for the financial crimes. Drayden had built himself an escape hatch from the beginning, ensuring that if their scheme collapsed, Bree would bear the legal burden. The prosecutor handling the case called Walter to inform him of this development. "It doesn't change the core charges against Knox," the prosecutor explained, "but it complicates the case. Shows premeditation on his part, but also suggests your ex-wife was a willing participant, not coerced as she's been claiming." "That matches my understanding of their relationship," Walter confirmed. "There's something else you should know. Knox claims the waiver was your ex-wife's idea, that she approached him initially, not the other way around." Walter absorbed this information silently. "Mr. Hale, are you still there?" "Yes." "I'm not surprised. Bree always had contingency plans, just not as good as yours," the prosecutor noted. "Anyway, I wanted you to hear this from me before it becomes public record. The plea negotiations with Knox are ongoing, but this development means he'll likely receive a reduced sentence. And Bree, she's now facing additional charges. The waiver contains admissions of criminal intent that strengthen the prosecution's case against her." After the call ended, Walter sat on the porch of his rental cabin, watching darkness settle over the mountains. There was no satisfaction in this final revelation, only confirmation of what he'd already suspected. Drayden and Bree had been using each other, each planning to betray the other when convenient. His phone buzzed with a text from Kendra. "Still on for this weekend?" "Yes," he replied. "Bring hiking boots. I want to show you the entire property." Walter set his phone aside and opened his laptop, pulling up the house plans. He made a small adjustment to the workshop design, adding windows to capture more natural light. His father would have approved practical but meaningful, an improvement that honored the purpose of the space. As night fell completely, he looked up at the stars emerging above the mountains. The future stretched before him, unwritten but full of possibility. Not the future he had once planned, perhaps, but one built on his own terms. His legacy. Walter closed the laptop and allowed himself a genuine smile. The quiet storm had passed. Now came the rebuilding.